These people have no missions except to exploit you. So if you want to be exploited and you want to be taken advantage of, follow those people. But if you want to have an example of what a real leader is, look to someone like me. Because you can look at my entire life and you haven't had any symbols of real leaders. You've been given fake versions of them. People who say the right things. They have 20 different people editing their scripts, giving them teleprompters. You don't have real fucking people.
You know what I realized about you, Dr. Shiva, is that the things that you say are way ahead of their time, and I think that we will still have to decipher the things that you say for a lot of years to come. And I've kind of had this epiphany this morning: is that when you speak, a lot of the stuff goes over people's heads. I'm really glad that you said what you said, because us as a people, we're tired of seeing these people somewhere up top that are so detached from reality. Once in a while, they come down, they write a book or they do a podcast, and they try to tell us what we want in life, what we like, and they never seen reality itself. So I wanted to ask if you could please share, and this is what makes you different from anyone else. What is your background? What was your childhood like? And who were some of your influences in your childhood that helped you along the way?
Yeah, it's a good question to those people who are joining. The questions, first of all, Naz, I would say the insights and the questions you're asking are very judicious, and it shows me that you really thought about a lot of this, and you're a very self-reflective person. But let me just, to people joining, we're having a discussion, which we're going to get into, on really the origins of Western medicine, its strength and weakness. But what I want to share with people, that topic that we're discussing, has an origin which goes back to my early childhood, right? And everything since that point. So the influences of my childhood weren't any big heroes or superheroes. They were just everyday, extraordinary, hardworking people. My great-grandfather, who was an indentured servant, who I saw work in the field until he was in his mid-90s. Working class people. I grew up in New Jersey. My teachers who had 3 jobs, who taught me chemistry, right? Coaches, who would beat you up to not physically beat you up, and make sure you excelled and you worked hard. Consistently with all these people was a notion of working hard, your labor. And that's what I would say was a consistent thing. I literally see these people sweating in my mind's eye, physically working, teaching other people. And most of all, having a great attention to detail, a very high degree of excellence, a commitment to their work, like the quality of their work mattered. I remember when I was learning to paint in New Jersey by a Yugoslavian painter, it was one of my parents' friends, and I used to go painting in the summers. And one day, when you paint, you paint the walls with a roller, and you have to cut the edges. And you can see someone's paint job and how they cut the edges, you see? And he stopped me once and said, everything you do in life, you're leaving your name on it. So do it with excellence. Wow. Or don't do it at all. Okay? So this attention to detail. So this was about the people, what I'm consistently talking about were painters, teachers, coaches, farmers, who are just freaking hard working people who got up early in the morning, 4 or 5 a.m. They worked hard. So they had no regrets in their life, like they cheated somebody. And in their eyes, you would see the steel in their eyes of someone who really you couldn't fuck with. You know why? Because their personal integrity and their public integrity matched. Like they were absolutely transparent people, you say? So there's nothing in there's nothing in who they are that was a mismatch. And so when they spoke words, it was precise, it was powerful because their words matched their deeds. And, you know, my grandfather looked like an eagle if you saw him and you didn't fuck with him.
Wow.
Okay. My grandmother, you didn't fuck with her because these people worked hard 16 hours and they didn't want to be fucked with. And if you fuck with them, you better watch what you got from them. Okay. So when people are living the truth, they do not fuck around.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't use kind words if you fuck around with them because they speak with integrity. Their personal lives and their public lives, there's no different. I mean, people say, oh, Dr. Shiva, why do you curse? Well, as a public figure, I'm not going to behave differently. That's what they do. And all of you probably curse at whatever in your home and you're walking around with God knows what. And, you know, well, I do that how I am because I don't want to give you two Dr. Shivas. There's one Dr. Shiva, but there's two booby fucking Kennedys. There's two fucking Donald Trumps. There's two fucking Joe Bidens. And booby fucking Kennedy tells you to your face, personal integrity and public integrity are two different things. What the fuck is he talking about? And you accept that. That makes you a fucking slave if you accept that. So my life is about people who didn't have two different lives. They weren't schizophrenic people. And the reason they weren't schizophrenic is they lived honestly and they worked honestly. They didn't have time to be diplomatic because they were about doing shit and getting shit done. You know, I get up in the morning and you can ask anyone around me. It's like you get up at 5, you know, and I work. I get about 5 hours of sleep and it's work all the time and I enjoy what I do. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like to waste my time. I don't like people to fuck around with me. And real hardworking people are like that. They have a mission. They know why they're here. They're here of service and duty to their families, some other grander, whatever it is, right? But they have a goal and they have a mission. These people have no missions except to exploit you. So if you want to be exploited and you want to be taken advantage of, follow those people. But if you want to have an example of what a real leader is, look to someone like me. Because you can look at my entire life and you haven't had any symbols of real leaders. You've been given fake versions of them. People who say the right things. They have 20 different people editing their scripts, giving them teleprompters. You don't have real fucking people. You've been taken advantage of. So that's why I'm shadow banned so much. They're afraid of me. They put me back on Twitter and these things, but they do that. But that's what they do to ordinary people. You see, they're afraid of us. So my influences were ordinary people, but who were extraordinary. They were like living gods to me because they did what they said and you did not fuck around with them.
Wow.
They did what they said. All right. My coach said in soccer, we're going to win in high school, we're going to be undefeated. And we were undefeated in one of the biggest divisions, 13-0. We had people who set goals and they go achieve them. Not like, well, we sort of achieved it. Let's give excuses. No, they went and achieved their goals. My goal is to shatter the swarm. My goal is to educate as many people possible who want to learn. We're not going to go beg to you. We're not doing, we're not thanking you because you come to our movement. You should thank us because we're here and we're giving you the opportunity to raise your consciousness. I'm not going to go down to sound bites and shit. But to your point, some people we have a lot of people, who come to our movement, but they say, I watched you for 2 years. Then I realized, holy shit, I finally get what the fuck you're doing. You actually mean what you're saying. This is not a grift. So my influences were those people, what they said match what they did. My great grandfather, I still see him in my mind's eye every day. He said what he did. And he did not fuck around with people who try to bullshit him. Very little tolerance. Okay. He wasn't kind to those people, and you shouldn't be kind to those kind of people. He had very bitter words, the harshest words, more than fuck you, okay? They didn't fuck around with him. That was my influence. My chemistry teacher, Mr. Walker, who had 3 jobs. Chemistry teacher, he was a contractor and a carpenter, and he put 2 kids through school, and he was the best chemistry teacher I ever had. If the answer was 99.215 and you put 91.21, you got 20 points off. Okay. It wasn't like, well, you're pretty close. No, because he knew that, 10,000 decimal point in chemistry could be the difference between blowing up a reactor and
Wow.
making the reactor run. Right. These people had a sense because they were people working in the real world. They weren't giving out
Mhm.
fucking trophies. All right. You look at the Yugoslavian guy said you, it was about excellence. So those are the kinds of people. My grandmother, she was a traditional healer.
Yes.
We're going to talk about
Hmm.
medicine. She practiced an ancient form of medicine. It didn't involve, giving people antibiotics and steroids and sewing them up. It involved looking at them, speaking to them, understanding them, having conversations with them, observing them very carefully, observation, watching little twitches, watching if there was discolorations on their face. You see, after a while, this is called attention to detail. That's what I
Hmm.
learned from her and from others. And with that attention to detail, she'd figure out what your body was and then how you were off course. And then she didn't just give everyone the same medicine, everyone got what was appropriate for them, the right medicine for the right person at the right time.
Wow.
Right. But it came from this deep observation, attention to detail. So these people taught me to keep my word, follow through, attention to detail, excellence. You know, and that's what we teach in our movement for Truth Freedom Health. We teach people these very, very important skills that the current educational system doesn't teach. So we have to take people who come to our movement, we tell them, hey, write this thing, and it's written shittily. Then we have to give them feedback, right? So we're doing all the work, but these people are ready to learn, you see? And if they're
Hmm.
not ready to be self-reflective and they can't take feedback, we tell them to go on their way.
Hmm.
Because we're building an army of people whose personal and public integrity matches. They want to actually do something paradigmatically different. But the people that were in my lives, Naz, these were extraordinary people. These were people who were not bullshitters like Trump, liars like Booby fucking Kennedy, right? All of them who came from the swarm and have the luxury of being diplomatic. We don't have the luxury of being diplomatic. I'm sorry, we don't. They have the luxury of bullshitting you. We don't.
This is what sets you apart from everyone else. You just blew my mind again. I wanted to ask you. Oh, a shout out to Mr. Walker, by the way, the chemistry teacher, and to your great grandparents. A huge shout out wherever they are. I wanted to ask Dr. Shiva, what was the turning point in your life when you realized that the world that is being presented to us is not what it really is, and that these people up top are not really our friends? Was there a turning point, or was this a gradual thing that happened?